For the Middle Fork Weiser River Restoration Project, the second area of PFC objectives that need to be incorporated as part of the recommendations are those for aquatic restoration. And at the April meeting, one of the discussion items during the Road and Recreation Infrastructure Committee report was, is there a need to consider more of a landscape scale, and what does the PFC wish the landscape to become post-treatment? So the purpose of this video is to offer some ideas to the committee and eventually to the full PFC on how to approach the PFC objectives for aquatic restoration. Now again, on the screen are the four watersheds, 6-level watersheds that are part of the project: Granite Creek at the northern end, Jungle Creek, Mica Creek, and then Little Fall Creek at the southern portion of the project area. And notice that the dark lines are the 6-level watershed boundaries, and this dotted line is the project area boundary that cuts off a portion of Little Fall Creek, and it extends a little bit into the East Fork of Weiser River, and I think that's primarily to pick up a couple of trails involved. So to repeat the definition from the video for the terrestrial restoration, restoration is a process that assists in the recovery of an ecosystem that has been degraded, damaged, or destroyed. For aquatic restoration, the PFC has in the past used watershed condition class as an approach to determining or evaluating whether a portion of the project landscape has been degraded, damaged, or destroyed. And those condition classes are functioning properly, functioning at risk, or impaired function. Also, an important part of the current condition is the ID team's use of the travel analysis process, and within that, the benefit risk assessment of roads. And the ID team has used the results of that assessment in order to recommend future status or treatment of roads. So that is the current condition and helps identify the status in terms of aquatic restoration need. The desired condition is one of two things: either improvement of the watershed condition itself, or in some cases it may be the improvement in watershed condition indicators that contribute to the overall evaluation of the watershed condition. So what is the current condition for these four watersheds within the Middle Fork Weiser River? Granite Creek is the current condition class is impaired. Note that the size is 11,680 acres, and the Forest Service dominates the ownership in that watershed. 93% of the land within that watershed is managed by the Forest Service. Jungle Creek is the current condition for Jungle Creek is functioning at risk. 12,400 acre watershed roughly, and 65% of the watershed is owned by the Forest Service. Mica Creek is a second watershed that is classified as a condition class of impaired function. 17,576 acres, 73% of that area is Forest Service ownership. And then lastly, Little Fall Creek, 16,200 acres. Only about a third of it is owned by the Forest Service, and that is also a condition class of functioning at risk. What's the source of that classification? I think both Melanie Vining in past presentations and also Lee Bailey on the New Meadows District have described the 12 indicators used for the watershed condition framework. The 12 indicators are along the columns here at the top. They are grouped into 4 ecological processes. Over on the left, the aquatic biological includes two different indicators, biota and riparian wetland vegetation. Aquatic physical has three different indicators: water quality, water quantity, and habitat. Terrestrial physical has two important indicators: roads and trails, and soil condition apart from roads and trails. And then the fourth process is terrestrial biological, and there are five different indicators. Each of these indicators is rated in one of three categories, either poor, fair, or good. The poor is 3. So as we look at the graph, a 3 is sort of the opposite of what you would think. It's not better, it's the least desirable condition. Poor is a number 2. Good is assigned number 1. I'm oversimplifying this a little bit because each of these 12 indicators has multiple attributes that go into making up the final assessment of the condition, whether it's poor, good, or fair. But I'm just looking at the value that was assigned in aggregate. Now the graph below the columns is showing the value for each of the 4 watersheds. So Granite Creek in red, Jungle Creek in purple, Mica Creek in blue, and Little Fall Creek in green. Using these values, a weighted average is calculated to determine the condition class, and as a result of that watershed condition arithmetic, Granite Creek and Mica Creek were assigned a condition class of impaired, and both Jungle Creek and Little Fall Creek are functioning at risk. Should add that there is a weighting here, that the terrestrial biological, even though it has 5 different indicators, in calculating the average, the weighted average, these 5 are weighted at 10% because they're considered an indirect impact on watershed condition. Each of the other 3 ecological processes are weighted at 30%. So in addition to the watershed condition, the travel analysis process evaluated roads, and the ID team had recommendations for the status of the roads. Display them in a table here organized by watershed. So as you look down the column for Granite Creek, for example, you'll see the result of the ID team recommendations in the following categories: maintain or improve the road. There are 30.8 miles in Granite Creek that were assigned to that category. No roads were added to the system, or the recommendation was not to add any roads to the system within Granite Creek. 1.2 miles are recommended to be relocated, 0.6 of a mile of new roads. The county has 3.9 miles within that watershed. System roads that were recommended to be decommissioned are a total 6.3 miles within Granite Creek. And for unauthorized roads, the recommendation for decommissioning was 19.5 miles. And then there are 2 categories where the roads need further evaluation by the ID team. System roads, 10.1 miles, and unauthorized roads, 0.5 miles. So that within Granite Creek, that is a total of 72.8 miles. And you can see the comparable values for each of the other 4 watersheds and the grand total across the watersheds over on the right, for a total of 206.5 miles of road within the project area. Different way to look at that is these pie charts drawn on each of the watersheds. The size of the pie reflects the total miles of road within that watershed. Dark red color is maintain or improve. Orange over here in the legend is new roads. The miles are very small for new, so it doesn't show up very well. Relocating roads in orange. 2 categories of decommissioning. I think you can see that best in the pie chart for Granite Creek. The yellow is decommissioning of system roads, and then the pale yellow is a recommendation to decommission unauthorized roads. And then the gray area are roads that fell into the category of needing further evaluation by the ID team. Another indicator or factor to consider is stream crossings. The points that are displayed here within the watersheds are simply the locations where existing roads cross streams, and some subset of these would be a priority for improving fish passage. So going back to the current condition, the areas highlighted in green are the indicators that Melanie mentioned at an earlier PFC meeting of indicators that have a value of poor. If they were changed or improved to a fair condition, for example, it would improve or it would have the potential to improve the watershed condition. Restoration treatments would be the mechanism to improve the indicator from a category of poor to fair, and those are investments, potential investments to improve the condition of the watershed. So let me just give you an example so you can kind of get an idea. Keep your eye on the value here that determines the watershed condition over on the right. For Granite Creek, it was 2.28, and put it into the impaired condition. If we're able to improve habitat, which would primarily be the improvement of stream crossings from a poor condition to a fair, that would improve the condition calculation to a 2.13. If we could also improve roads and trails by decreasing the road density and also improving the maintenance of roads, that would have a further improvement. And if other soil conditions could be improved within that Granite Creek watershed from a poor to a fair condition, the arithmetic would produce a value that would improve the condition class for that watershed from impaired to functioning at risk. So I'm just showing that as sort of a quickie way to get an idea of restoration investments that could impact the watershed condition and move it from one category to another. So in summary, I think one of the tasks for the Road and Recreation Infrastructure Committee is to build on the work that you've done so far and focus on more of a landscape and watershed view of what you would like to see improved within the Middle Fork Weiser River. And I'm providing this table as an example. First column is the watershed. The second column, I'm just capturing the acres again and the percent of the land area within the watershed that's owned by the Forest Service. A column to assign priority, and then an objective. And so I'm just offering one example here for Granite Creek, and I'm using that because of the dominant ownership by the Forest Service that this is a 6th-level watershed where you could easily justify restoration investments because the Forest Service does control much of the outcome for the condition of that watershed. I've rated that as high, and the examples I've used here are to improve the watershed condition framework indicators from poor to good, if feasible, for at least 3 categories: the roads and trails, soils, and habitat conditions. And as you look at the other 3 watersheds, I'm just again proposing a ranking here of a relative ranking of low, medium, and low based on Forest Service ownership. And the task at hand is to identify objectives for each of those watersheds in order to be able to guide the Forest Service into their allocation of funds for aquatic restoration activities as they develop a proposed action. So hopefully this provides a little bit of background to help the committee and the PFC finalize priorities and objectives for aquatic restoration within the Middle Fork Weiser River project area.